The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
We are the Atheist Nomads, bringing you history, science, politics, religion, and interviews with leaders in the atheist community. Not all those who wander are lost.
Welcome to another Atheist Nomads. I'm Wesley, and you might have noticed Dustin's not here. So, hope everything's going well with you, man. Yeah, we will chat with you soon. Anyways, yeah, goodness. We have a lovely guest today. His name is Robert Laurence, and he is working on being a writer. He is a pretty cool kid. I mean, this guy might have a pretty decent future on him, I think. So, anyways, Robert, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Holy shit. Yeah, sorry, So yeah, Dustin's in a far off place. I'm about to fly out. I got the hibbity jibbities. I'm a little amped up right now, and so now we got you, and you're down in Texas, and you're all chill and relaxed, and I'm like, oh my god. So, anyways,
no worries.
How you doing, man?
Texas is really laid back, so we just, even though there's a lot of religious people here, it's pretty,
oh my goodness,
pretty laid back for the most part. Most people are just like, oh yeah, you're chill.
Nice. You're actually down in Texas now?
Yes, actually in San Antonio.
Holy shit!
I just moved here.
Sweet. So. You know what? You're gonna have. I don't know if you like soda pop. There's one called Big Red. You have to find it.
I've heard of that.
It's from down there. It's like drinking raspberry soda, but really sweet. Anyways, check it out.
I will.
So, my goodness. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where you're from, what you do, what you like to do.
Well, right now, I was actually, it's interesting. Right now, I've changed, I guess, the whole lot in that I was always interested in like philosophy and writing and, thinking, I guess, overthinking things, my dad would always say. And I think that's partially what, led me down this path of being a skeptic, but,
too curious.
right. And it's just, it's just been interesting, I guess, the journey of thinking, of coming out of the box, I guess you can say, and realizing, why, because I just became a skeptic like about 6 months ago, became an atheist, but I was actually, interestingly enough, studying to become an apologist, and
oh wow!
So
nice.
Yeah, so it was quite a different side that I thought I was going to be on.
Well, I know Dustin was going through the seminary, so that was kind of crazy. How were you? What classes were you taking to be on that path to being an apologist?
Well, I was actually taking. Well, I guess it was really just me, studying the Bible, and especially my particular, I guess you can say, denomination. Even though they believe they aren't denominational, it's the Church of Christ. Anyway, you can look them up on Wikipedia. Anyway, they believe that they have their own interpretation is the actual interpretation, and basically they are the only Christians that are the true Christians. All the other Christians are basically fake Christians, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah. I love the Christians that end with TM or reserved at the end.
Pretty much. I mean, it's like, well, this is ours, and they literally will do sermons where it's like, well, this is the one true church, and, all these other people are not the real Christians, and which is honestly the most ridiculous thing, because it's actually, the fallacy, so it's actually a little fallacy of, saying that somebody is not something that they actually say that they are, So it's kind of like, that took me a little bit to get over, and partially just one of the many things that I realized, kind of like, well, that doesn't make any sense technically. And,
Nice.
you know, so, I mean,
Well, curious, what flavor were you? What flavor Christian?
it was Church of Christ.
Church of Christ. Okay.
Basically they believe, in, you know, that you have to be baptized in order. Oh, sorry.
So that's not Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Oh, no. It's
Okay.
a strict. It's not them. It's actually, yeah. It's basically, they're kind of like Baptists in a way. They're kind of like they're kind of more that direction, I guess you can say. They are very, I don't know if they believe that there's only one interpretation of the Bible, basically, and that's their interpretation. And there's many different sects that kind of like believe different things. Like one believes that you can have, you know, mine believed, for instance, that you can have many cups for drinking the grape juice that they use for the Lord's Supper. And then there's another sect that actually believes that you can only have one cup. And I mean, there's a lot of different little sects that all fight each other about everything. And I mean, there's issues over, you know, marriage, divorce, and remarriage, premillennialism, and it's quite a bubble. It's like several different bubbles in a bubble, quite honestly.
So that's a total new one on me. What is premillennialism?
Yeah, premillennialism is a particular part of like Christianity, I guess. They believe that now this wasn't my sect, but they believe that Jesus is going to reign for 1,000 years, and they get it from some kind of verse in Revelation. They believe that Jesus is going to come down from heaven, reign 1,000 years, and then I think they go up to heaven or something. It wasn't my particular sect that believed that. In fact, we kind of thought it was kind of strange. It's kind of weird honestly, the things that I remember my particular sect, like laughing off ghosts and stuff like that, but yet at the same time, they still believe that, you know, a guy walked on water, you know, several years ago. So it's amazing to me, I think, at the exact things that they keep believing, even though they have no evidence for it. It's crazy to me.
It's fairly average.
I know.
Most of them believe a lot of things that they really just don't have evidence for.
Yeah, I know. It's just after you get out of the bubble, you're like it's like you're waking up almost. It's crazy to me, and I think it's an interesting thing that, like, when I first realized I was an atheist, I didn't want to become an atheist, of course. You know, I was, you know, studying, I was like, you know, I was trying to prove actually a lot of times atheists wrong, actually. I was, you know, going and I started watching Dark Matter 2525 videos, and, he's a YouTube,
I'm familiar with his cartoons. They're awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing that bothered me was that, you know, he would put, you know, script where he found it in the Bible. And I was like, wait a second, this is actually in there. That's stupid, you know? And I kept on, like, you know, coming into this, you know, like, how could this be? And, you know, I kept on kind of like, well, I started trying to find apologist answers for it. And, you know, eventually I started, like, being like, well, I started disagreeing with apologists, actually. And I was like, wait a second, you are kind of being, you know, dishonest. I started, I guess, seeing through the facade and the, as I call the apologist's acrobatics or contortionist, you know, trying to say something, just completely give a completely wrong definition of it, or just completely try to, you know, make whatever they could do to get around some kind of, you know, problem. And it's so dishonest after you actually look at it. And when I realized that, I, started having serious questions about it. And finally, eventually, it was actually that Dark Matter 2525's video that on the Book of Job, because I had this idea that God is good, and I kept on holding on to that. That was kind of like the last thing. And of course, Yahweh is completely a horrible character in the Book of Job. I mean, he literally does all of this on a bet, and with the devil, no less. I mean, here's the perfect character dealing with the devil that he would, if there's a human dealing with the devil, making a bet on somebody's life, you would think that this, God would condemn it. But
he did it himself. His life, his wife and children, his farm, every bit of property. Yeah, and then he doesn't even, he's like, well, I'll give you new children, but he doesn't resurrect the other ones. And he doesn't do that with his own son, definitely. I mean, come on. At least don't be a hypocrite here. Yeah, no, God's a dick. In that story, you're like, holy crap, this is not good at all. I mean, generally the, Yahweh comes off as kind of just not cool and sometimes a dick, but this one, he's like, whoa.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting. Somebody was saying that, actually, all the different people that, Yahweh kills is actually much less than the devil, than Satan. And, here Satan is hailed to be this horrible person, this horrible individual. And, here he literally has nothing, God could, literally take him out of the picture completely. He wouldn't exist without God. So, it's crazy to me, kind of like, here's this adversary that, God is not trying to even triumph over. He already has. He's just literally letting somebody go and torture you. And then plus, here's the thing is, the Satan doesn't really torture you. He does actually in the Book of Job, he literally does what God wants in a way. So
as I recall, the number of deaths that you could attribute to Satan is like under 10. Yeah. And the numbers of people that have died that you can attribute to God is like in the tens and tens of millions.
Absolutely.
And it's, come on. We're talking about a bet between Satan and God, and God, as we understand him, like in at least the last couple of centuries, is generally like all-knowing, all good. But the whole all-knowing thing, why does he need to make a bet with Satan in the first place if he already knows the outcome?
Oh, absolutely. But, the apologist's answer, of course, is that he's trying to, test, Job, test his loyalty to him and love to him. And, if a boss did this in the workplace or something else like that, if he allowed a psychopath to go and torture a employee, this man would be a horrible individual by everybody's standards. And, but here God, the perfect person, the perfect deity or whatever, it, makes a bet with the most horrible quote, being. And it's just, it kind of crumbles once you actually realize that.
Yeah.
Atheist Nomads is proudly brought to you by Archway Hosting. Check out their low-price, full-featured hosting solutions at archwayhosting.com. That's ARCHWAY hosting.com.
Hey, we're also brought to you by listeners just like you. Find out how you can become a patron at patreon.com/atheist nomads. That's patreon.com/atheist nomads. I recall you saying that you used to have a really tight family life and you're not part of that anymore. What's going on?
Yeah, well, here's the thing is that, with my family basically said after, I came out to my family and I didn't want to come out then, but my mom asked me directly, and, I had already been, I guess dealing with, trying to hide something from my family. And I honestly, I love my family so much. They're so important to me.
Yeah,
And, I really wanted to tell them, but I knew, what their reaction. I knew in my, mind, I was like, well, what would my reaction be? And I was afraid of my own reaction if I hadn't have gone on my, journey. And so, I mean, I understand what they're doing, but they feel like that if they cut off, contact with me, that I will, return. And that's what happened, is basically I came out to them, and because my mom asked me directly, do you believe in God? And I decided that I had to be, truthful, that I had to not lie. And so I told her the truth. And, I mean, they tried to, of course, get me back, which I expected. But, I just tried to show them the reasons why I left and why I didn't think the claims in the Bible were true. And, of course, they just felt that I was just, being mean to them, criticizing their belief. And, yet here's this double standard of, if you're going to try to proselytize me, and I don't mind you trying to, talk to me about these things, but, I should be able to say, my reasons for leaving, just as you have reasons for staying and for believing that. And, it's the problem is that these beliefs, they put a safe mode of where, well, I'm offended by, you criticizing my beliefs, and that you can't talk to me about certain things. And it gets to be a very toxic and dishonest conversation very quickly.
But also is really apparent that they were, at least your mother was trying some seriously messed up emotional blackmail, trying to, get you to believe or whatever, so that you would stick around, or that you would still believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to me, because, at the same time, I know that she just wants things, I mean, if you actually believe that your child is, they always go to this example, is that, you saw somebody, that was in the road that was going to get hit by a car, would you pull them back?
Totally.
But the problem is that's a complete, false scenario. And, if you had an invisible car and the person couldn't see, that this car was there, but you could see it, and, this person showed that, had several other people that didn't see the car, but other people believed it, and, they did tests on the situation, and there was no reason to believe that there was a car there. But yet this person believes it, and because they read it out of a book, that's not a good reason to not walk across the road. Okay. And I think that's what religion does to people. They just get into, this stalemate, and they never go on the rest of the journey. They never, walk across the road, and they never are able to interact with a society in that way, I guess, in trying to actually think about why they believe and the reasons why they believe what they believe. And I think that's it's sad, honestly. It's sad. I've been trying to tell my mother, it's kind of like, to me, feels like you want me to believe in, Santa Claus again. And I mean, it's, after you can't just start believing in Santa Claus again. It's, but of course, religious people think that's offensive, of course. So
you open the box. I mean, now you're looking for evidence, and if there isn't any, why should you go back to believing something that there's no proof of?
Exactly. It's sad though, but in apologetics is just tried to make this thing where it's a taboo to talk about, and it's ridiculous that we can't have a honest discussion whether a character from centuries ago, whether we believe that supernatural things happened in the past. I mean, that's a bold claim. If I said that Abraham Lincoln, there's a movie out or a book out that's called, Abraham Lincoln, a Vampire Hunter. Why don't we believe that? I mean, this is the same claim as, even if you believe that there's a real Jesus, person that was named Jesus and everything else like that, he could very well have been sort of somebody like Robin Hood. Some people believe that Robin Hood may have existed, but that doesn't mean that, certain things that the actual Robin Hood story, exactly as it went down, came into being. And
sure. I mean, it could be a conglomeration of a bunch of different people that just kind of got the name. Mm-hmm. Jesus could be a real person, could be, again, a mixture of a bunch of people, or
mm-hmm.
Could have never existed in the first place, and just people
Absolutely.
like the stories. But you know what? People kept fairly decent records, and there's no stories of Jesus from the same time. I mean, it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
everybody remembered, then Jesus died, everybody forgot, and then Paul came along and wrote a bunch of letters, and everybody remembered again.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the thing that I thought was interesting. My mom, brought me out the Josephus book, of course, and she, flips to the page that says, Jesus was there, and he did many, miraculous things. And this is what Apologetics has, said for, years, that says, well, this is proof.
Sure.
Well,
200 years later.
It's literally, yeah, exactly. But this is literally, as I said to my mom, I said, okay, let me read the entire book. And she didn't want me to read the entire book. In fact, she, took it away and didn't, want me to read it. And I was like, well, if you have this thing, I mean, this thing is a few lines long. I mean, what's wrong with me, looking at the whole thing and seeing, what I think about it? But this is the problem, is that believers haven't really thought about this belief. They always look for authority figures to, and they would, of course, deny this, but they would always look to authority figures to be like, well, they believe this person is a smart person. They believe. That's what they always say with scientists. They say, well, this scientist is a creationist, so therefore creation science is completely okay. It's just as good as evolution, actually better. It's kind of like, no.
We should ask the scientific community how they feel about Michael Behe, because there's one of him and like hundreds upon hundreds of everybody else that just totally doesn't agree with him. But, as far as Josephus goes, I mean, as I recall, that was written in Greek. And if you read it, especially in like the original Greek, that, there is you can kind of tell who wrote a thing just by their diction and how they speak.
Right.
But when they get to the part about Jesus, it feels way different too. So it could have been a totally different person that put that in later. At best, like I was saying, I mean, this was a couple hundred years after Jesus. Mm-hmm. So it's not like there was somebody with eyes on him. I mean, this is like passed down, or just added. Just straight simply added later.
Well, if you do any research into, there's a great book called The History of God by Karen Armstrong. And, there's many different books written on, the documentary hypothesis, which looks at the Torah and basically does, as you says, it's, criticism of actually how it's written, and to see how that, how the books may have, been written in different times by different writers. And there's good reasons for all these things. And, they've done the same things basically to pretty much all the Bible, to the Gospels and all these different things. And, it's very much a well-known fact at an academic level that these stories are literally just, the result of myths, just like the, Greek and Roman gods. And it's crazy to me that, apologists still want to believe, that these stories have any basis in fact.
I am looking for a book real quick.
Oh, no worries.
Shit, we were talking about who earlier? Robin Hood.
Yeah, Robin Hood.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the guy that wrote
The Hero.
Yeah. You're talking also about Behe's book. You might mention that again, because I'd really like. There's actually a guy that mentioned that to me, so I'd really like to get into that a little bit.
Well,
if you want.
I'm not really familiar with that. I would totally
really?
like to. But Behe, I just recall this, something that makes me laugh every time I see it. Mm-hmm. And if you go to the webpage of the college that Behe teaches at, there is actually a page on their website that says, we do not, as a whole, our teachers, our instructors, professors do not agree with Michael Behe's interpretation of creation. That we believe in the scientific process and all this stuff. It's mm-hmm. just, they distance, they keep him on the payroll, but they completely distance themselves from him. It's just funny.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
because he actually goes to teaches at a decent school.
Mm-hmm. No, he does.
And he's the fucking nut.
I mean, well, it's interesting to me is that, here, this guy on several podcasts, I believe he said that he believes in evolution, but he believes that, like on a micro level, that supposedly this irreducible complexity, that something couldn't have, designed the molecules. And this is completely the God of the Gaps argument, because we can't completely say exactly how these things evolved. Therefore God did it. And that explains nothing. And this is a scientist. This is somebody that, is supposed to explain how things work. And,
mm-hmm.
Here he is just saying, well, a magical, fairy did it. It's kind of like, how can you do this? And, this is what I talk about, being dishonest. And I honestly kind of wonder about some of these different people that are, that know, they are scientists. They know this stuff. I almost wonder if they're actually being just deliberately dishonest and just knowing that there's a certain sect of individuals that will, buy their books. And, I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of like you have to wonder about some of these different people, whether they really believe this or if they're just, people that are just lying to get, a lot of a paycheck, a huge paycheck at, knowing that they have a built-in audience.
We love hearing from our listeners. You can email us at contact@atheistnomads.com, tweet us at atheistnomads, send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/atheistnomads, or better yet, call us and leave us a message at 541-203-0666. We might even play it on the show. You can also help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcast directory of choice.
here's something that I've always loved, and I don't think I've actually brought it up on the show before. There's this old guy, long dead, called, his name was Raglan, Lord Raglan. And in 1936, he developed a 22-point myth ritualist hero archetype, which was based on something from Otto Rank. It was a while back before that, based on the Oedipus legend. And basically there are, like I said, 22 things that basically the more of these that are true for a person or a character, the less likely that that person was real.
Right.
Like one, mother's a royal virgin, father's a king, unusual conception, hero is reputed to be son of God, blah, blah, blah. So, it's a really interesting little thing. Like, I think Robin Hood got like 14. The one person that was real on the list only had like 4. I think he was the least. Sorry, Alexander the Great. He had 7 points. Robin Hood had 13. Of course, Oedipus has 21 or 22. It's kind of shaky on one of them. But Jesus had 19, as I recall. And it's, I mean, he's like more than Apollo, more than Dionysus, Belpharon. I mean, it's just Jason and the Argonauts only had 15. I mean, like, come on.
Right.
It's just silly to even think of this person, think of this character as a real person. But it's a really fun read, really good book. Should check it out. It's called The Hero by Lord Raglan.
I'll have to check it out. I've been really part of it. It's very interesting that you mentioned that because the one of the things that actually kind of led me to realize that the Jesus claim is completely not that special, honestly.
Really? Okay.
It was Joseph Campbell's it's Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Myth or something like that. Anyway, but basically what he talks about in the book is that he shows the structure of, the hero's tale in the book. And he goes into, all the different, stories, what's the catalyst and different things like that. But he talks about religion, and he talks about, he went into Buddha, he went into, Greek mythology, he went into even, Christian mythology. And, it was interesting because that was the first time I had actually thought of, the Christian ideas as, as something that was to be critiqued or as a story. And I just always accepted them at face value as an actual fact. And I never questioned it. And so that book was kind of interesting for me. It just set off, I guess, a lot of questions in my head.
It's really fun to realize that what you believe depends heavily on where you're born.
Absolutely.
You definitely got born into a very Jesus-centric area.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many people at work that, like, I have, crosses, and I was talking to a friend of mine, you drive in Texas and San Antonio, and you see church after church after church after church. And I mean, I have no problem with, people that, want to practice their beliefs or whatever, but at the same, it's amazing to me that you guys, the churches, number one, can't agree with each other. I mean, if there was some kind of, actual deity that wanted people to know each other, it wouldn't be hard for him to come down and say, "Hey, I'm here," and be like, "You see me?" I mean, he could literally make it as fundamental as, us seeing our hand in front of our face. I mean, so, it's amazing to me.
I always remember that little bit that says, if you get two good people saying, praying for the same thing, I'll make it happen. So I'm pretty sure that's happened once or twice in history.
Right.
But, so, I mean, come on, really? Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to me is that, like, the idea that, you know, I'll be praying for you. I actually literally had that today, you know, that there was this girl that, you know, I was trying to tell her that, you know, I was looking for some different places and different things like that. And, but she's like, well, you know, I'll be praying for you. And,
right.
You know, as much as they mean it in a good way, I mean, I understand why they say it, but,
Sure.
You know, you have to realize,
might as well
like,
say
you know,
good luck.
Good luck. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like,
it's just kind of a reflex that they just say it.
yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like, you know, bless you, as you say, you know, when you sneeze or something else like that. It's very automatic. And, it's interesting though, if you actually see prayer for what it is it's literally one of the best optical illusions, you know, that you could ever have. And what I mean by this, there's a great video, I forget who did it, but it's on YouTube, that shows prayer as an optical illusion. It says the best illusion ever. It says, you know, pray to a bottle of milk, and, you know, the way what you do is you say, you know, what the bottle of milk wants to do is, you know, it says it always answers prayers in yes, no, or maybe, basically, or yes, no, or wait. Yeah, that's what it was. And so, you know, if you get, you know, you say you need money, you're praying for money, and you get your check in, or you get your, you know, income tax in, well, then the prayer was answered. And so the bottle of milk did it. And then, you know, if you didn't get the money, well, then he said no, or maybe it was just waiting. Maybe he said he would get it a little bit later, and you get it a little bit later, and still that was that prayer that thing did it. And once you realize that, you're like, how did I ever believe that this actually worked?
I'm just going to stick with a magic 8-ball and call it good.
Right?
Man.
It's crazy. I don't know. And I realized actually that prayer didn't quite work completely. I was like, well, even when I was a theist, I was like, well, it obviously doesn't work all the time. Elsewise, you know, I mean, when I was a kid, I prayed that I would get superpowers, you know, I mean, as kids do, but,
sure.
But, you know, of course, you know, it was a long time after that. And I had been praying desperately because when I was first kind of thinking about some of these different things, I was like, well, I must be doing something wrong. I must be, you know,
Definitely,
these things.
It's always your fault.
Yeah, exactly. Why am I doubting? Why am I, you know, thinking these thoughts and everything, you know? And so I was praying very earnestly, and, you know, I started realizing, well, you know, nothing happened. I started realizing, you know, as a believer, you feel this, you know, kind of like, I'm close to God. I'm, you know, trying to pray to him, and you feel comfort, actually, you know, you're talking to God. And I mean, we weren't like super, you know, like some people would, you know, have these like, almost like, I guess, experiences or something like that, you know, where they roll on the ground or something. We weren't like that at all. It was more just, you know, you talking directly to God and being honest with him and everything else like that. And, you know, but that still had this level of comfort. And after a while, I just didn't hear, you know, I just didn't feel anything. I just didn't, and it's not just that, it's not just a feeling. It's just that I realized I was just talking to myself and there's nothing there. And, you know,
man, how did that make you feel though? Did it, I mean, sad or?
I mean, it was
excited?
horrible, actually, man. It was actually kind of horrible because, you know, I remember going to bed every night and I would, you know, I was watching different, videos, different people, and I was still trying to, prove these horrible atheists wrong, and I was, I would literally go to bed at night and I would be like, well, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what is right. I don't know what to do. I don't know anything. It was just so much for my, my head felt like it was going to explode almost. It was just too much information. It was quite, I guess, quite a almost traumatic experience in a lot of ways. And I mean, I'm sure that, other people have felt even worse things with, honestly, I know that a lot of different people have even, quite, even more fundamentalist ideology than I do. And I can't imagine, going through that. So, it's amazing. But, this is, this fear of, hell and fear of, doubt. Doubt is a horrible thing. And in the believers, camp, you can't doubt God. You know that God exists because flowers and bunnies and all this stuff and cute kids and stuff like that. It's like, it's so, and it's so ridiculous with that claim. I don't know.
I know from a young age, I always had the really sad feeling that, sometimes my prayers seemed to come true, but there was so many Christians in Africa that it seemed like their prayers never came true. I remember that from a really young age. That always bothered me and hurt. Mm-hmm. Like, why doesn't he listen to them?
Well, it's interesting, actually, because that bothered me for a long time as a kid. And it was something that actually, literally, I realized now that I literally lied to myself directly because I couldn't find an answer to it. And so I came up with this idea, and that, and I think it was probably off of some kind of, sermon or something that had come. But, it was this idea that, if somebody truly wanted to see the right way, somebody really, even deepest, darkest Africa, in every time, in every place, and, no matter who you were, you would literally you'd find God, you'd find the right thing, and everybody else is just lying to themselves and, not really believing what it is, or just lying to themselves and, saying that, they believe, or that they're just, something that, they decide not to go down a different path instead of, believing in truth, and the truth will, lead you to the Church of Christ. And my particular, sect of the Church of Christ too. And, it was actually a believer. I was actually talking to a believer about this idea. And, I don't know if he was just distracted or what, but, he didn't, he didn't say he disagreed with it, but I don't think he said anything. He just didn't, say that he agreed with it or anything. He just was kind of like busy, and I guess he didn't really even probably hear me. But it was interesting because that belief for 1 second wasn't reinforced. And I think that was all it took to disabuse me of that particular belief, which is interesting, I think. Because it's interesting to me is that a lot of times if you challenge a belief, actually, with a believer, it's actually much easier to fight against that, because you can fall upon on all the other beliefs that you already believe, and when that one belief becomes attacked, they just, everything, teeters, and, it gets supported by, yeah, exactly. It gets supported by the other beliefs. And I have this idea that was, actually first kind of thought of by, this guy called, he's on YouTube. His, channel is Evidence 3 something. Anyway, and, he talked about beliefs as a, sort of network theory, in that there are many nodes in a belief, and that each one supports the other. And what I like to call this idea is the castle of faith. And that once, a node gets attacked, it gets reinforced by the other ones. And then all the other ones support that and, try to find some way to still believe in all the other ones. And it's only how you get out of it is only that, all of those points of belief have to be countered, and then the whole castle of faith just crumbles, and you wake up, you realize you're an atheist.
Well, we can hope. Toss a little wrench in those gears and hope it kind of grinds on it for a while. But
exactly.
Yeah, usually it's just something, give them a little passing thought or a question and just kind of like walk away, just see what happens.
Absolutely. And this is the thing, I think that, and it's hard for me to do, is that, I keep getting into this, counter apologetics because, believers like to, say so many untrue things that they have no evidence for. And, instead of getting into these things, well, that's not true, because all these reasons, instead you actually need to just ask a question. Just say, why do you believe that? Why do you believe that the Bible is true over the Quran? Or why don't you just believe in the Torah with Jews? And, you mentioned Jews and Muslims. I mean, they believe their religion just as hard as you do. I mean, what makes them exactly
wrong?
Or
what
like even right? Hinduism and all these other beliefs that, aren't even, not even from the Abrahamic, faith,
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many different, religions. How can you just really think that you're the only one, that's right? What if,
even screw religions. I mean, I was raised Southern Baptist, and, all of our church leaders would have the Baptist convention, once a year at least, and they'd all go in there and, huddle and say what the beliefs are for the next year. And our pastors had come back to our churches, and, we knew that every other church of Baptists out there was going to hell, but ours was the right one.
Exactly.
We took it hard like that.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, in my particular sect is that they would be like, they would feel like y'all were, of course, too liberal, and that y'all don't have any authority to, decide what y'all are going to believe exactly by yourselves.
Yeah.
You have to look into the Bible, and, that is the actual interpretation. I read an article which was, from my particular sect published, of, different people in my church. They said that we have to stop saying your interpretation. That's literally what the Bible said, because the article said, they said, because the Bible cannot be interpreted. The Bible is only, one thing, and that's, our way, basically. And it's like, that is just completely ridiculous. It is just like, you are lying to yourself in such an obvious way. I mean, most Christians realize the Bible can be interpreted, but, it's like, how can you go into this like acrobatic, idea of like, it's actually this. And it's like, no, that's just illogical.
As a listener of the show, I'm going to assume you love my sexy vocal stylings. If you love the rest of the show as much as my voice, consider giving us the resources we desperately need to purchase quality cocaine and Red Bull. We make it super easy to make a one-time donation or to support us on a per episode, monthly, or even annual basis using PayPal or Patreon. Find out more at atheistnomads.com. Use the links on the right side of the page. $1 an episode is all we ask.
I also recall you talking before we got on the show about some really excellent resources that helped you, get on your feet and, be able to survive.
Well, I gotta shout out to a lot of different people. Actually, I gotta shout out to the SSA, the Secular Student Alliance. I gotta shout out to the Dogma Debate. I gotta shout out to all the different people that are in a Friendly Atheist, Ask a Friendly Atheist group. It's a group on Facebook.
Really cool.
There are many different people that helped me out. Sean Riviera specifically, he literally came up and got me in the middle of the night just after he got off work, and he's the president of the Secular Student Alliance here at UTSA in San Antonio, Texas, and he not only got me in the middle of the night and took me down here, but he also opened up his apartment to me to be able to let me stay there for a few weeks. So that I could, get until I could get on my feet. And, so, yeah, I mean, I have so much respect for this.
That's something that churches do really well is, taking care of their own. But, that's something that, secular world, it's definitely coming up. It's definitely there if you look for it, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean,
that is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because Vicky Getman, she's part of the San Antonio Atheist for a Reason star, and she made a GoFundMe for me, and many different people donated to it. Dogma Debate, Marlis, Dolfinger, she donated, tons of people donated to this to help me out, to get me on my feet, where I could get a car, and it was quite amazing. It's amazing. I think this type of thing needs to be done more. I think because it's so scary when you have especially nobody that understands, nobody that all your friends, literally all my friends. I had literally 2 friends that were 2 of my coworkers that were able to help me in any way, and everybody else literally closed off from me. They totally shunned me.
That's so fucked up, but it's encouraging to hear that people are out there and people are willing to help.
Exactly. And that's the biggest thing is that, I think that, us, the atheist community, we need to realize that we need to, step up and try to help even more people. I can't imagine even the people that are, like in Saudi Arabia and different people like that. We really need to try to get some sort of foundation started, where we can help specifically people that are, in a situation like I was, where they don't have community. They don't have any financial aid. And I think that a lot of different people are coming together, with different things for the priests and all sorts of different, movements to help people out of there when they no longer believe, and find them jobs and different things like that. I can't imagine that there's been many preachers that have, basically come out of the closet and realized that they were an atheist because they studied this. And I can't imagine what it would be like after, studying for years and, literally teaching these things to people, realizing, these things weren't true. And then, what am I going to do now? I mean, you don't necessarily have a job or something else like that waiting for you.
Yeah.
And so I think that we need to, try to help these people as much as possible. And these voices are, I think, who we need, going forward.
I totally agree. Man, oh man. So I know I'm sure that there's some people in some really fucking tight spots that are out there right now. You might be listening to this, you know, I'm sure there's people around that can help, or people that can care, you know, help you out of a tight spot. So if you're in a fucking corner, you know, speak up. We don't really have churches to congregate at, so, you know, might be somebody that can help you. So, you know, fuck, say a thing, please.
Another great resource to go to is, you know, Recovering from Religion. This is a hotline that, you know, helps people. You know, you can talk on the phone with them, you can chat with them they have a public chat that you can talk to them and stuff like that. These are people that will help you and helped me, you know, realize that, you know, how to talk to my family, and maybe helped me even just to hear a friendly voice that understands, that won't judge you, that won't, you know, they'll be like, I understand, it's okay, you know, and you know, because you feel so alone. You're not only without, you know, this comfort of, you know, religion and, you know, that, you know, God is watching over you, your specific deity that is all powerful. Yeah. Not only that, but your friends and your loved ones are literally, you know, sometimes shunning you, sometimes shutting you out, sometimes, you know, calling you horrible things. And in some cases, you know, some of these people are, you know, are in danger of their life. I mean, in certain cases, in certain places. So, I mean, that's just crazy to have to deal with.
Fucking A. And, you know, on the other end of the spectrum, if there's somebody that's out there that wants to help, you know, those groups that you've mentioned already, Robert, you know, those are awesome resources. You know, as I recall, I think Shelley Siegel, a really awesome singer and just all around cool person, is one of the people that goes to the hotline that you were talking about for Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Right.
But also, you know, like we had him on our show a while back, Connor Robinson. He runs the Humanist Service Corps, the program director, and you know, they actually go to other countries and, you know, help people a lot. Wow. So, yeah, if you want to actually like fucking get out there and do some shit, or just, you know, donate a few bucks to the people that do, you know, he would be an awesome people to look up too.
Absolutely. No, it's, you know, to me, I want to, you know, be involved in the atheist community, because, you know, this is a epidemic almost in a lot of ways, and we need to try to help people, you know, understand, and, you know, like different people that at least can, you know, realize that we need to have laws, and we need to have secular laws that, you know, don't have, you know, have anything to do with these ancient texts, because these ancient texts, you can some of them literally, you know, say stone your daughter for if she has some type of, you know, if she has has had sex before marriage or something else like that. And it's crazy to me. It's like, how can you even say that you want the 10 Commandments to be laws? I mean, that's it's insane. And most of these people don't even realize that there are actually two different sets of 10 Commandments, you know.
Oh, sure. Do you want to talk about, you know, boiling a calf in its mother's milk?
Exactly. I mean, and you cannot have any graven images. I mean, literally the first, you know, few commandments are just, you know, Yahweh being completely like, you know, like a little baby, you know, trying to like, no, worship me.
Yeah, he's really fucking petty, really fucking evil.
Exactly.
He is literally the kid with a magnifying glass, just like killing ants with it, you know.
Exactly, and he's like so narcissistic. He's like, you think, you know, I mean, his whole thing is he does this whole rant with Job, and he's like, were you there? Did you create everything? No, it was me because I'm awesome. It's like, how petty can you get?
Well, obviously pretty fucking petty. That's great.
I know. It's like, this guy is the ultimate narcissist. It's like, if he was real, he would honestly be such a horrible being that, nobody would want to worship him. At least I don't think any good people would want to worship him. I mean, it's crazy.
You'd hope.
You would hope, but I'm sure that there would be people that I probably would want to worship him, so.
Yeah, well, I actually go the other way. I'm a member of the Satanic Temple.
Oh, yeah.
Just because, they're awesome and, they believe in science and reason and, people's rights. And
well, it's kind of like, it's funny because, like, here are these people that, are Satanists and, people are like, oh no, Satan! And it's like the boogeyman. It's basically, like, literally, they're the boogeymanists. It's like, come on, people, you have to realize Satan's not real. It's like, they're just, they're literally...
that's actually the good part about that, At the end of the day, true Christians, TM, the real ones, right. They know that Buddha's not real. They know this flying spaghetti monster's not real. But at the end of the day, they fucking know Satan's real. So
I know.
So you know what? If the believers won't follow us to a good secular community willingly, then fuck it. We'll take it because they just don't want to have Satanists in there, so they'll get the Christian out of there also. Mm-hmm. Because equal time is a great thing in the government. So, if you're going to have a Christian thing, you got to have everything else.
Well, here's the thing: is that the Christian right always wants to say, well, freedom from religion, freedom of religion, type of thing.
Yeah,
and the thing is when you actually look at it, is that they don't want freedom of religion. They actually want special privileges.
Oh, totally.
And it's like, no, you don't really want freedom of religion. You want a theocracy. I mean, didn't Ted Cruz pretty much run that on his campaign? I mean, it's crazy.
Well, good old Ted. I mean, God must have not wanted him to be president or every other Republican candidate because they all said, God, spoke to me. God says I should be the president. And look who's up there. The fucking Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
They never said that.
Well, if God had spoke to each of them, is God just like playing with them? Like, is he the ultimate prankster and he's just like pranking all of them?
Well, if that was the case, then it would totally fit into his character.
It would, actually.
Oh, boy. So I think that's go ahead.
I think that God would absolutely fit completely and agree with completely all the modern day trolls that are on the internet.
Oh man, totally. Well, man, I think that's a good spot to call it a show.
All right.
Do you have anything that you want to plug? You want to?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Robert M Laurence. And I haven't tweeted a whole bunch of different atheist stuff yet, but I'm going to be doing more of that, especially coming soon, and I'm going to be more involved in other groups, and I'm planning on writing a book as well about my journey to skepticism. Sweet. And you can also find me on Facebook as Robert M Laurence as well on a page, and definitely look for me there, and hopefully more great things will be coming out in the future.
Awesome. Badass, man. Fucking A. Thank you very much for taking some time here with me. And
No worries.
sorry Dustin wasn't here, but he'll be back soon.
No worries. I really appreciate you having me on.
For sure, for sure. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you next week with news.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Atheist Nomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.